Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Kristin Snowden, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. But this is not therapy. This is just a live webinar that I'm doing through the great free supportive resource of WeTonglen community. So welcome, everyone. I will be covering the topic of discussing boundaries. Why boundaries sound so basic and simple in definition, but yet it's so hard mentally, emotionally, physically to identify what our boundaries are, to set them with our loved ones, with coworkers, friends, the outside world, and hold them. So I'm going to really focus in less on what boundaries are, but what goes on within our mental health, emotional state, and our physiology when we set that boundary, when we are so brave as to set the boundary. So let's talk for a minute about what boundaries are, just for everybody to understand. Boundaries are, well, the word boundary is defined as a line that marks the limit of an area, a dividing line. But a personal boundary, right? So a personal boundary that we set as we're kind of moving about the cabin, engaging in these crazy things called life. You know, we have crazy geopolitical things happening, crazy things happening within our own family systems. They're the boundaries where we kind of set when we say what is okay and what is not okay. It's a guideline, a rule, or a limit that a person creates in their lives to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for others to behave toward them, and then how they will respond if anyone in this area of their life doesn't respect that limit or boundary. So essentially consequences. And again, Brene Brown really simplifies the concept of boundaries by just saying, hey, when you move around this world, it's defining and verbalizing and communicating what is okay and what's not okay with you. Because if any of you watch my webinars, I really try to help everyone understand that we are neurobiological beings. Like, we operate in this world kind of pushing and pulling and engaging others and withdrawing from others based on like a feedback loop system. You know, we have that survival brain that's giving us cues of like, this is safe, this is not safe, this is scary, caution. Okay, this is okay, you need this, you need love and connection, but this is feeling a little too vulnerable and exposed to danger, back up. And the goal is for all of us to feel safe enough to love and get love in return, to be vulnerable just enough to have other people be vulnerable and real and authentic with us. And that is really, really scary, because every time we're vulnerable and we let people see us and know us, there's always a chance that they see it and they go, yeah, no thanks, this isn't for me. Or because of their own personal states of what they want and need, or where they're at mentally and emotionally, they might not be able to respond in a way that's safe and healthy for us. So, and for many of you, you are all dealing with the fact that your whole life has probably been turned upside down because you have made yourself vulnerable to another person, someone you loved, someone you built your life up with. You thought that that they were giving you the benefit of the doubt, that they were being honest and transparent, and kind of doing all these things that securely attached people should be doing. You know, communicating, being open, honest, seek physical proximity to you. If they say something, if they make a promise, if they make a commitment, they're supposed to keep it. When there's ruptures in the relationship, they're supposed to be making efforts to repair them, you know, appropriate efforts. Many of you are not with somebody right now because they're either working on recovery, or you've just uncovered severe and brutal levels of infidelity, lying, maybe addiction. And you're trying to figure out, okay, now that my entire life's been turned upside down, I have so much evidence about why I shouldn't be making myself vulnerable to other people, why other people are scary. the only thing that's going to help you, well, one of the things that's going to help you get through to the other side is to really hone in to this concept around boundaries. Because this counterintuitive thing happens when you've suffered betrayal trauma. You've had someone that you love, someone that you're supposed to trust. You have someone that you're supposed to be able to engage with, to speak truth to heal with. And they've kind of destroyed that. And the goal is for you to work towards that again. They might not be the person you can work with towards that. So you kind of have to seek out an external community like a WeTonglen, betrayed partners groups, other support groups that you can engage with other people to try to remember, okay, some people are scary. Some people lie, cheat, do things because of their own mental illness. I still want to be seen. I want to be vulnerable and loved in spite of my flaws. And that can only be done by securely and clearly identifying what your boundaries are and maintaining them, right? So there's no 100% safety in life. I can never, nor can any other therapist, offer you any 100% answer of, your partner who's lied, who's an addict, who's cheated, who's betrayed, they're definitely on the righteous path and they're never going to do it again. You can never lean on that kind of level of safety. So the best that we can do is offer you a really strong boundary structure and try to keep you around as many other safe people who also have healthy boundaries so you can safely lean into them. The first key to exploring boundaries is finding a happy medium. When we talk about boundaries, we talk about them being like semi-permeable. So meaning you don't want to be so protected that you are not connected with the world, right? That I'm like safe, but the doors are shut. I'm not telling anybody in my circle about what's happened. I'm not engaging with anyone, but I haven't had anyone look at me like, oh, that's really happening to you? Oh my gosh. Or why aren't you just leaving the guy? Why are you reacting this way? Just pack up your stuff and go. So I'm protected from judgment, from rejection, from things like that, because I'm isolated. That's not the goal. That's over on this side. And then the other version is I have no boundaries. So I let everybody in. I let everything in. I let all of this influence come in. I have all this like shame and all these different opinions. And why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? So I'm connected with everybody, but I'm not protected. So we're trying to find a happy medium between all those kind of things. Let's talk about a couple of those things. Why are boundaries so difficult? Well, the first thing is that it pushes back against our shame. And if any of you have watched my videos, I talk a lot about shame because I think it's a foundational piece that's at the core of so many things of why we do what we do and why we don't do what we do. So let's talk a moment about defining shame. We are neurobiologically wired to connect with other people. So a lot of our feel-good hormones and chemistry come out when we're in connection, when we're loving somebody, when we're hugging, when we're holding that pet, when we're having this great conversation with somebody, when we've met somebody with similar hobbies and interests, when we're in these betrayed partners groups and we feel like, okay, these women get me, they know me, they don't judge me, they kind of let me sit with my pain. We are neurobiologically wired to say, yes, this is what you need. Keep going. It's safety in numbers, right? The tribe with the bigger tribe would survive. As long as we stayed with other people, we would reproduce, have that big tribe, and we'd survive. But it's also, we need other humans out there giving us feedback that, you are loved, you are validated, you're important to me, that you want that. There's that physical proximity that we really yearn for. So as long as we have a strong drive to neurobiologically connect with other people, I want them to like me. I want them to think that I'm competent. I want them to, need me and love me and think that I'm special. As long as I have that wiring in me, I'm going to have an equal opposing force in me that's saying, oh, you want that so badly? What if you're too messed up for it? What if you're too emotionally needy, or you're too broken now, you have too much trauma, or you're too emotionally erratic, or you have an addiction issue yourself, or you've been a bad mom, or you're a bad husband, or you're a bad partner, whatever. These things kind of circle around in the back of your brain, making you believe this story that the whims of another person external to you all have to do with you. It's I could get into shame, but I'm going to encourage you to just kind of view some other videos of mine on the concept of shame. But the reason why boundaries are so hard to set is because every time we're engaging with another person, every time we're deciding if we're going to say yes, we can help them, or no, I just can't right now, or I'm going to take a chance on you even though you've hurt me, or I'm going to, try this and I've never tried it before and it's really scary. Setting boundaries on all those kind of things are very scary because we always have this voice in the back of our head that's saying, is that making you like too needy? Are you asking for too much? You're being really unpleasant. There's so many rules about what you can and can't do. We have this cultural and this internal drive in most of us to have that like disease to please. I want to gain validation and acceptance and love from all, just not one or two. So we don't want to say no when people need help, or when they're asking for money, or when they're asking for emotional resources. We're prompted to forgive and forget. We're asked to be pleasant. When you think about when you were a child and the messages that you received when you grew up, it was like, oh, forgive and forget, get over it. Be pleasant. Don't ask for so many things. Be that fun one. The fun ones and the spontaneous ones were all the cool people that people wanted to hang out with. There's a strong emphasis on cool. Think about that. What does cool mean? Get over it. Don't share what you really think or what you really need, because they'll just say no, or they won't be able to handle it. So asking for your boundaries to be heard and respected is extremely vulnerable. And when you make those vulnerable acts, you are risking exposure. You're risking rejection. You're risking that the people that you need to show up for you and respect what you're saying to feel safe, they might say, no, I'm not capable of that, or I don't like that, or it is too much to ask for me. So setting and identifying, setting and holding boundaries is extremely difficult because we have those really, really strong shame voices. Because when we ask for things to feel safe, when you are asking what you need your partner to do to help you feel safe again, whether it's doing a full disclosure, going to therapy, putting a internet security system on your phones or on your internet. These are things that will help me be a better person, to stabilize, to heal from my trauma. Anytime you're asking for something like that to be met, you are also at the same time exposing yourself to rejection, to abandonment, to more evidence that someone doesn't love you enough, that they don't value you enough. I mean, the truth is that it's usually their own stuff, their own crap, their own shame that's stopping them showing up for you the way that they should be showing up for you. But remember, we are very egocentric beings, and our brain, it's too hard for us to wrap our brains like around the story that another person could just engage in this addiction and this really destructive behavior, and we have no control over what he or she or they do. So we have this little shame voice in us that goes, oh, I know how to write this story. What if I make you believe that maybe it's just if you ask for too much, or if you were a better mom, then this wouldn't happen to you, or if you had sex with him or her more, or were more spontaneous and exciting, then maybe none of this bad stuff would happen. Our brain doesn't like that story that just really crappy things happen and we have no control of it. So that brings me to the number 2 reason why boundaries are so hard to identify and maintain. And it is because usually when we've like made that commitment to figure out, dig deep, figure out what we need to feel safe, to maintain our sanity, to put one foot in front of the other and be the best person that we can be, our authentic selves. When we make that decision to set those boundaries, we think that it is just going to lead us to like down the yellow brick road to the Emerald City for all our cash and prizes. But unfortunately, our neurobiological like response to setting boundaries does not trigger that immediate gratification that we're hoping for. So if you think boundary setting in that immediate moment is going to feel good, you are very wrong. In fact, I tell most clients when I'm talking to them about setting boundaries, speaking them, making them very clear, because clear is kind, respectfully to other people, don't expect this hit of like, oh yeah, Kristin, you're on the right track. You're being the best you. Because neurobiologically, my body is receiving it as something new and uncertain and scary and vulnerable and full of fear. So it might lead to happiness and safety down the line, right? We do hard things because usually the prize of when we do hard things and we're successful, it feels really great. When you think about all the greatest moments in your life, when these moments that felt so wonderful to you, it's usually because you were doing really hard things, really uncomfortable things leading up to that moment. So later on, the boundary setting kind of cash and prizes might come to you because you maybe aren't walking around so emotionally exhausted, or you do finally share your story of what's going on in your marriage with a few small, safe people that you can share it with. You go out of your comfort zone and engage with a betrayed partner community to kind of share your story. Like these things immediately feel so scary. But in the long run, it has the potential to feel even better. I always say a good measurement of like what is a good boundary to set and not is eventually, does it feel like a net gain or does it feel like a net exhaustion? So that's an interesting point. And also because it should eventually help you feel safer. Even if the answer is, I tried to set this boundary, let's say I told a good friend about what was going on in my marriage. And, and I just asked her, I said, hey, I'm going to share with you something that's really hard and scary for me, but I'm just going to ask you to not judge it, to just kind of sit with me through it. And when I tell her my story, she starts judging it and just goes, oh my God, I can't believe you've done this. Why are you putting yourself through this? Here, you can move in with me, but you got to get out of there immediately. That initially will feel very shaming and uncomfortable for you. Like I asked for that boundary to be set. I asked for it to be respected. And now I feel like I just had it kind of trampled all over. The initial feeling will not be good, but eventually you'll say, okay, well now I mentally know that's just someone that I cannot share with. Sadly, I need to keep finding a few other people who can sit with me, who when I'm sad, sit with my sadness. When I'm angry, let me sit with my anger. Know that I have all the resources internal to me to just figure this out. I just need compassion, empathy, non-judgment, and I'll sort this stuff out from my loved ones. Maybe I have some professionals that help me with some other things, but just my loved ones or people I care about, I just need them to kind of sit and hold space for me. But so eventually it should start causing you to feel safer, but in the immediate moment, not so much. So the couple other things that tend to be obstacles to setting boundaries is that you have to be brave, like I said, because there's no immediate feel-good moment. And so you have to be okay with the long run, that, these are things that I've identified that I need to feel safe. I don't want to feel safe anymore or unsafe anymore. I need to do what is safe for me, for my family. And so I really have to be brave and say, these are my non-negotiables. This is what's not working. These are the consequences if he or she isn't able to do this. Something to keep in mind too is that boundaries do not, we think that boundaries create obstacles to living and loving and giving to others. But the truth is that authentic, vulnerable, compassionate connection towards others is unsustainable without boundaries. So for those of us who are still kind of sitting and waiting to see if our partners are going to, go to therapy, start a 12-step recovery program, stop acting out, etc., that is an act of love, to sit there with them, hold space for their brokenness, continue to love them through their struggles. But if you look at anybody who is loving and giving authentically and vulnerably to other people, it is not sustainable without some level of boundaries of look, this is okay, this isn't. I need to take a break here. When you think about any good therapist, right? I cannot hold space for someone else's trauma, struggle, personal pain if I haven't set up the proper boundaries within my life, with time constraints, with emotional limitations, or what's going on in my life, without setting up really logistical boundaries. There's a lot that comes into being able to love someone, be present with them compassionately, authentically, and vulnerably. And that's usually with boundaries. So, and the other thing is that this whole process takes time. It takes flexibility of okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, this didn't work. Can I try that when I'm setting boundaries? I have that healthy boundaries chart that I've posted for, I think Melissa said that she passed it out to everybody, but this is just a look at it. The story I tell when I talk about boundaries is that someone handed me a sheet like this back in the day and said, oh, this is a really great way to talk about boundaries. You should check it out. I've since added a lot to it, reworded a few things, but this is a really great way of, I used to carry it with me every day. And I kind of did my daily inventory looking at these boundaries. Was I, taking responsibility for my own happiness and fulfillment? And was I allowing others to be responsible for their own happiness and fulfillment? Am I committed to and responsible for exploring and nurturing my full potential? But, knowing that other people have to do that as well. Do I ask for help when I need it? Do I set limitations and I say no when I can't do it? Do I say yes when I can do it? Am I respectful of financial boundaries, emotional boundaries, logistical boundaries? Every day, boundaries push back up against me every day as I'm being asked to do more things logistically, showing up as a mom, showing up as a therapist and coach, showing up at my job, showing up as a partner. Every day, shame pushes back and says, who do you think you are, taking a break? Who do you think you are saying, I need to go to bed early? Who do you think you are saying, no, that's just not going to happen? Or no, I can't pay any more money for this topic. I'm going to withhold, or I need to use my finances in this way. Maybe spend a little bit less money on my kids' extracurriculars and more on my marriage counseling right now, because kids won't have extracurriculars if my marriage is crumbling, and things like that constantly I have almost this angel and demon on my shoulder that every time I'm asked to set a boundary, I have that demon in me that's saying, no, you don't get to, do this. You don't get to ask for help. You don't get to say no. So I'm really going to ask you to take time, process this a lot. And I also encourage you to know that when there is that hesitation, that pushback, when you're identifying, setting, and holding boundaries, it's, in my opinion, one of the core issues is about shame. So if you've never worked on your shame, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. It's painful, difficult work to explore your shame, what it is, how it shows up, what it looks like, how to build a shame resiliency process to it. But it can also be a game changer in your life, in your relationships. And another reason why you often get pushback and hesitation is because PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, many of you have been severely traumatized, and your neurobiology, your nervous system is already like so tapped out and so overwhelmed. So when I'm talking about being brave and this takes time and this doesn't feel good right away and shame will come up and bite you in the butt, your neurobiology is just like, oh, I can't. Like, it's easier to just kind of lay down and be a doormat because that's all I know how to do right now. If some of you saw the sexandrelationshiphealing.com webinar I just did, I talked about that fawn, please and appease response, right? That's that. I'm just, my neurobiology is overwhelming. So I'm just kind of in like a shutdown mode, or I'll align and I'll kindly blindly agree with you. I have no boundaries. I have no opinion because I'm just exhausted from my trauma. So, and then finally, I'm just going to close with this. Signs that you may be currently struggling with trauma, and I already said this, is that if you find yourself kind of building up, and then exploding, or kind of saying things passive aggressively, like snarkily through sarcasm, being emotionally abusive in any kind of way, or you feel yourself be in a constant state of exhaustion, like that martyrdom of you're just running on that treadmill, you can never stop, and you don't feel like there's an exit anywhere, but you feel trapped and exhausted. And another sign is when there's physical symptoms, panic attacks, stomach issues, sleeping problems, etc. And telling yourself that, well, look, I'll just keep kind of carrying this burden and carrying on until hopefully this happens, or until my kids graduate and get out of the house, then I can get away, or until, he gets that promotion at work because he won't be under such stress, etc. So these are when I save enough money to get away or something, right? These are all things to pay attention to, because these are all signs that your body is asking you to set some boundaries so you can regain your safety and your sanity. And that is it.